of miles away we should not worry about, he ought to remember some lessons from history. Lord Macaulay, about 200 years ago, called for the dismantling of Sanskrit in the British Parliament and replacing with English education. And look at what has happened today. That's a lesson he ought to learn. A few decades later, Max Muller, the famous Max Muller, created this Aryan invasion theory, and based on that, the Aryan Dravidian divide that we have to live with today in the South especially. And it's a topic of major controversy, and that is what was started by somebody thousands of miles away, and we people ignored it the way Arnab wants us to ignore what Harvard is doing. And then fast forward a few more decades, Lord Risley, all these things happened in the 1800s. Lord Risley created what became a fixed hierarchical caste system when previously it was very flexible. And again, at that time, there weren't people questioning all that in terms of its consequences, because there were many Arnab Goswami types saying, oh, how does it matter? Who cares? Well, today we do care. Also in the 1800s, until the 1800s, Sikhi, which is what later became known as Sikhism, but Sikhi, which is what the Sikhs call it, was a panth within the Hindu Dharma. Panth means path. It was one of the paths within the Hindu Dharma. There's plenty of evidence of that. A lot of good Sikh scholars have written about it. So it is in the 1800s that the British decided to distort it and call it a separate religion with the help of some Sikhs themselves. And look at the consequences of that, including the Khalistan movement. Regarding the claim that if it's far away, it shouldn't affect us, it doesn't. What starts at Harvard doesn't stay at Harvard. The Indian government recently invited European and American Ivy Leagues to set up campuses in India with no restrictions on what they'll teach, with no restrictions on who they'll hire. So you can imagine pretty soon you'll have people like Audrey Truskay and many others like that on the payroll in Indian campuses run by the Ivy Leagues, paying their higher salaries and attracting the cream of Indians to teach. So they'll be bringing their curriculum, their knowledge right into India and teaching our elite students for the next generation. That is what happens when you ignore the long-term consequences of creating the discourse and letting somebody else set that discourse. I wonder if Arnab is only focusing on short-term latest sensation and not able to look at what are the long-term issues with far greater consequences.